There is a fascinating principle in physics involving what is known as a Faraday cage. When a structure is built with a continuous enclosure of conductive material, it creates a completely impenetrable shield. You could stand directly inside of this cage while a massive, highly engineered machine fires 100 million volts of artificial lightning straight at your chest. The electricity strikes the outer grid with a deafening, terrifying crack. It completely engulfs the enclosure in a blinding flash of white heat. But inside, you wouldn't feel a single spark. You wouldn't even feel a static charge on your skin. The external energy is aggressively redirected entirely around you, neutralized by the ground beneath your feet. You just stand there, blinking, while the people watching from the observation deck lose their absolute minds trying to comprehend how you are still breathing. I want to anchor your spirit to that exact visual today, because what happens inside a Faraday cage is the closest physical representation of the spiritual reality you are currently occupying. You recently walked through a highly calculated, heavily coordinated storm. The toxic people in your life, the manipulators, the insecure family members, or the workplace bullies, fired every single weapon they had at you. They launched rumors specifically engineered to destroy your credibility. They tried to financially sabotage you. They aggressively isolated you, expecting to watch you completely collapse under the heavy weight of social exile. They bought front-row tickets to your funeral. But a funeral never happened. The smoke cleared, the lightning stopped, and the crowd realized you were just standing there, entirely unbothered, completely unharmed, radically at peace. And right now, a massive, deafening wave of shock is rippling through your entire periphery. The people watching your life are absolutely glitching. We need to have a deeply raw, incredibly observant conversation today about the psychology of the spectator. We are going to deconstruct exactly why your divine protection is currently causing a system failure in the minds of your enemies, and why the crowd is suddenly desperate to ask you questions they have no right to the answers for. To understand the absolute confusion happening around you right now, you have to look at how normal human beings process trauma. In the regular world, when someone is publicly smeared, betrayed, or stripped of their resources, there is a predictable biological response. The victim panics. They jump on social media and write a massive, emotionally unhinged paragraph trying to defend themselves. They beg the people who betrayed them for an explanation. They spiral into a heavy depression, and their physical appearance drastically deteriorates. The people who attacked you were counting on that exact sequence of events. Their entire psychological payout depended on watching you bleed. They needed your misery to validate their own toxic choices. But God had already wrapped your mind in a highly conductive spiritual shield. When the betrayal happened, you didn't panic. You didn't write the frantic social media post. You didn't stoop down to the mud to wrestle with pigs. You felt the heavy sting of the injustice, sure, but then your spiritual training immediately kicked in. You processed the grief in total privacy between you and the Creator, and you completely removed your emotional availability from the public eye. The attacks hit the outer grid of your life and just bounced off. Now, look at the timeline. Months have passed. The smear campaign has completely run out of fuel. And the audience, the mutual friends, the flying monkeys, the people who quietly stood by and let the abuse happen, are quietly studying your current reality.
They are looking at a mathematical impossibility. They know exactly what was done to you. They know how brutal the betrayal was behind closed doors. They expected to see a broken, bitter shell of a person.
Instead, they see you glowing. They see a person whose business is quietly expanding. They see someone walking with a heavy, deeply anchored posture of authority. They see a completely genuine, unforced smile. You look younger, healthier, and more vibrant than you ever did when you were trapped inside their toxic circle. This creates a terrifying cognitive dissonance in the minds of the spectators. Because if the abuse didn't break you, it implies that you are operating on a power source they do not have access to. It proves that you are guarded by a highly aggressive, invisible security detail that intercepts their dark energy before it ever reaches your nervous system. And human beings are deeply, inherently terrified of what they cannot understand. This brings us to the interrogation phase. Because your protection is so incredibly obvious, the curiosity in the enemy camp has reached a boiling point. The people who tried to destroy you and the enablers who watched it happen are currently burning with questions. They are whispering behind your back. How are they surviving right now? Who is funding them? Are they secretly miserable and just putting on a good show? How did they recover so fast? And eventually, that curiosity is going to get so loud that they won't be able to contain it. You are going to experience bizarre, probing interactions. A mutual friend who hasn't spoken to you in a year will suddenly text you, pretending to just check in. But their actual motive is to gather intelligence. An old toxic coworker might run into you in public and ask incredibly intrusive questions about your new life. Even the main narcissist might try to throw out a weird, passive-aggressive olive branch just to test the waters and see if they still have emotional access to your brain. They are desperately searching for the secret formula. They want to know the exact mechanics of your protection so they can figure out how to bypass it. I am giving you a very strict, completely uncompromising order for this specific season of your life. You are under a divine gag order. You do not answer their questions. You do not explain your piece. You do not give them the blueprint to your survival. When a spy is captured behind enemy lines, giving away their encryption codes is an act of treason. If you try to explain to a toxic, unhealed person how God protected your mind, you are handing highly classified spiritual intelligence to someone who only wants to use it to hurt you. When they ask how you are doing, you give them nothing but a flat, polite, completely empty response. I'm doing great. Period. End of sentence. No elaboration. No deep philosophical thoughts about your healing journey. You give them a blank wall. I want to dig deeper into the actual anatomy of why this protection works, because it's vital you understand your own mechanics. Why did the arrows pass right through you? Because the enemy always aims for the ego. Manipulation, insults, and smear campaigns are entirely designed to puncture human pride. But they didn't realize that your wilderness season already killed your ego. God took you into absolute isolation years ago and methodically stripped away your need to be liked. He removed your desperate craving for external validation. You already faced the darkest, most humiliating parts of your own soul in the presence of the Creator. You surrendered your reputation entirely to Him. You cannot assassinate the character of a person who no longer cares what blind people think of them. The narcissist aimed their heavy artillery at a version of you that died a long time ago. They shot at a ghost. That is why their weapons failed. They are fighting a physical war, completely ignorant to the fact that you became spiritually translucent. You are heavily protected because you are entirely empty of the things the enemy uses for leverage. You don't have greed for them to manipulate. You don't have vanity for them to exploit. You just have raw, heavily distilled purpose. And that makes you the most dangerous person in any room you walk into. The shock they are experiencing right now is just the beginning. The universe is currently preparing to move you from a defensive posture into an offensive season of massive, undeniable harvest. The people who watched you survive the fire are about to watch you inherit the kingdom. And the questions they have right now are going to turn into absolute, paralyzed awe. They are going to realize that they were never in control of the narrative. They were just unwitting extras in a massive, divine documentary about your elevation. They played the role of the villain perfectly, providing the exact amount of pressure needed to forge your anointing into solid diamond. You owe them absolutely zero explanations for the shine. I am deeply curious to hear the raw, unfiltered truth from the community on this one. Because sharing these specific moments is how we build a psychological map for the people coming up behind us. Think back to the exact moment you realized your attackers were entirely confused by your lack of a reaction. Did you run into someone who expected you to be miserable, and you physically watched their brain glitch when you gave them a completely genuine, happy smile? Have the mutual friends started sending those weird, probing text messages, trying to figure out how you are surviving so well? Drop that specific memory in the comments below. Detail the exact look on their face when they realized you were completely bulletproof. We need to document the reality of this divine shockwave today. Keep your mouth closed. Keep your frequency entirely premium, and let them exhaust themselves trying to solve a puzzle they do not have the clearance to understand. The shield is permanently active.